Yo! Video games.
What up, dudes, and welcome back to the YoVideogames podcast. I'm Matt.
And I'm the internet's other bald guy, Andrew. I'm Andrew.
Oh yeah, Simon's bald, isn't he?
He is bald. And he has a big, beautiful beard. I don't know. I swear to God, I don't know how I didn't. He has like 20 channels. I don't know how I never saw him before. I just saw him while sick and just started like piling through.
Oh, dude,
all sorts of.
Hey man, he was a go-to for me during the pandemic. Are you kidding?
Fantastic. I genuinely I hope he listens.
He's like you. Basically is you if you had a distinguished British accent.
Thank you. That's a wonderful compliment. Not for him, but for me. Big compliment. Sorry. But we have a patron to thank. Due to the week, of course, is Omar C. Thank you so much. If you're interested in becoming a patron at any level, please check out patreon.com/YoVideogames podcast.
Yeah, so we've been doing a sort of alternate history take for last few episodes on this podcast, and I think this time we're going to talk about reality a little more.
There's a lot of like wild stuff happening, but there is something that you mentioned. You talked about it on your stream, and it kind of caused this like little bit of a rabbit hole. And I think that'll be a fun episode. I mean, it's not fun in the way of like, ooh, it's going to be exciting, but it is a little bit fun to try and like go down the rabbit hole. And
well, yeah, I brought this up last night, and I think it kind of bears further discussion here, and that is, here we are in the year of our Lord 2024, and again, this is not a dunk on Nintendo episode in particular. It's just this thing's release library slim as the system right now.
That's a compliment to the system.
Well, okay, so here's the thing. It's April now. Well, as of this recording.
Yeah.
April 2024. We had a February direct. Granted, it was a partner direct, but it did end with a first party game technically.
Right.
And we know what they're releasing through June. But I went back and I was like looking at every direct for every previous year that the Switch has been on. And it's always February. There's like one year was March, but it's always February, right? And there was so much more every year that they had, announced for
right.
And this year, it's very weird because it's a ton of Mario games. There's like 2 new games technically. Everything else is a remake or a remaster. You had a remake of a DS and Wii game by Arc System Works for another code. And you had a Game Boy Advance remake of a Mario game. And then you had Princess Peach. It was a brand new game. Lovely surprise. Beat the game. It's a wonderful game. But, it's a smaller title.
Right.
But it's brand new. But it is a Mario game. And then we're going to get Endless Ocean 3, which is a brand new game. And then we're going to get Paper Mario Thousand Year Door remake. And then we're going to get a Luigi's Mansion 2 HD remaster in June. Mario,
right.
Mario, and Mario, and Mario. And then Endless Ocean and another code.
Yeah, but that's the only reason you buy a Switch is for Mario. Everybody knows that.
Apparently. So
every ex-bro knows that you only have Nintendo for Mario. There's no other games on.
And it's not even like what's so wrong about that? Nothing's really wrong about it, because again, it's just weird how like they have like the most opposite ends of the spectrum you could possibly get. Where it's like, here's Mario, the second most popular video game character according to BAFTA, or if you live in reality, Mario is the most popular video game character.
Who did they say is the most popular?
Lara Croft. Yeah, that was the talk of the town yesterday. Well, number 3 was Agent 47, according to them.
Well, it's like, what did they Would they just get this out of like Maxim magazine or something?
Or they just asked the PC gamer audience in 1998.
Wow. I wish I would have seen this yesterday. For anybody that does not know, I was sick as a dog. Actually, we were both. We both have been sick
Yeah,
for
yeah.
like over a week. So I feel like I missed out on I feel like I've been in a black hole. So it's like it's been me and Simon Whistler in a dark room for just God. That's anyway, but yeah, okay. So Laura Croft is the most she's pretty popular, but I that is insane to me. Like
Yeah.
who what was their methodology? That's what the
They said it
episode
was a
should have been.
4,000 people, 4,000 very
Stockbrokers?
4,000 boomer Brits.
That's wild. Who's your favorite video game character of all time?
Well, they're
Laura
asking
Croft.
who was the most iconic.
Right, so it's like all dudes in their 50s that they're asking?
Yeah,
Like
right? What?
all it's all you older Gen X, huh?
Again, who knows? Who knows? Agent 47 is number 3 for God's sake.
That's pretty
Um,
wild.
but anyways, like I said, Mario's not really. It's not a problem that like and Nintendo's making a bunch of Mario. Obviously, Mario games sell, obviously, um, but yeah, like you have this crazy opposite end where it's like, look, 10 people in the world are going to buy Endless Ocean 3 or another Code
Right.
remake. Like I'll buy Endless Ocean 3. I played the demo for another Code, didn't like it. Um, but it's like that games, those are 2 games I'm like, I have no idea how they got greenlit. I have no idea.
Well, it's sort of like I know how they got greenlit. They knew they had nothing. Like
Right?
we're talking about this yet again where it's like 2024 in my opinion is the actual consequence year of the pandemic start again
Right.
stop
Yeah.
again
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
production problems, the bullwhip effect, right?
Yeah.
We we are having a year where Sony first party is just non-existent almost.
Non-existent apparently.
Uh, a Xbox first party's sort of I, I
Actually
don't
coming around, but they've had
yeah,
a rough time till now.
their last couple years has been sort of non-existent, so I guess it only makes sense that they're finally catching up now. Um, they're like the slow kid in the race and just getting started when everyone else is petering out, I guess. Um, Nintendo having like a slow year, given that they are how usually pump out loads of games, their slow year's still probably going to have a good amount of games, but like this
Right.
is
Now, a bunch of people who were 6 to 11 when Paper Mario Thousand Year Door first came out, they're over the moon for getting a remake of that game on the Switch. I get it. Totally get it. It's totally
well,
valid.
and
But
it's a great game.
it comes out in May. And the weird thing is that like it's not even just oh, it's just Mario stuff and really fucking oddball Nintendo games like Endless Ocean. No, it's the fact that like they don't even have. I mean, technically, Metroid Prime 4 sort of exists in the ether, I guess,
Right.
but like they don't have anything. And this is not. And people are like, well, they only talk about no. I'm telling you, I went back and watched every single February Direct for the last 6 years. They all had like way more stuff coming out than what they have this year. This is like the weirdest, quietest year. 2020 was the only year that was comparatively oddly dry, but they had Animal Crossing and like Xenoblade Definitive and some other stuff coming out, that year. And then they later like kind of like
Right.
carried with Mario 35th anniversary or whatever. But um no, this is strange to me. And but the thing is, I guess what I'm getting at with this episode, this is characteristic of Nintendo for its last year. But in what sort of bums me a little bit is that they've literally been telling their investors they want to avoid this, but here we are. It's happening once
Again.
again.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the biggest hint ever. If you didn't believe us before, like obviously this is going to be the last year of the
Yeah, like
Switch.
it's really just it's to me it's just very weird how Nintendo continuously runs out the clock on their system and then just has 9 to 12 months of one
Right.
one game that's like of any sort of particular note,
And if we're
between
being
them.
honest, though, it really seems to work for him, right? I mean, I'm not saying that it's the best strategy in the world, but like
Well,
clearly it's
they
working.
they ran out the clock on the N64, and all it really did gave them the GameCube, which sold worse than the N64. And then they had the Wii, which was they ran out the clock on the GameCube, but then that was followed up with the Wii, which was infinitely more successful than the GameCube. And then they ran out the clock on the Wii, and then that gave them the Wii U, which was super unsuccessful. And they ran out the clock on the Wii U, which gave them the Switch. So there's almost like there's no real
Um,
correlation between success or failure of the following system, depending on them running out the clock. I think the point I'm getting at here is they run out the clock every time,
right. Okay.
and
Yeah.
it's kind of like who knows what it'll do for their next system. I guess if anything, I'm just sort of like, well, if you think this year is dry too, if you're agreeing with me here, don't worry. It doesn't really say one thing one way or the other about the next system because this is just what they typically tend to do, and this is almost proof that this is the end year for the Wii. I'm sorry, the Switch, same thing.
Although, if so, N64 was a failure everywhere but here, right? Yeah,
But
that's
here, but in North
yeah.
America,
Um, GameCube failure. Um, Wii huge success. Wii U failure. Switch success. What's the odds that the next system they release, which is just going to be another Switch, really, just a more powerful one?
I really think this really depended on their momentum, kind of like going from. And it's hard to say. It really is. I think it's almost foolish to sort of. I don't know. It's hard. It's really hard to say, man. Because like I honestly feel like I almost feel like the system probably should have come out last year, like a new system. Like if because here's the thing, I am completely under the impression that the next system will still be hybrid. It'll still be portable that plugs in
Yeah.
to your TV. I am completely convinced. I don't think they're going to deviate from that model at all. And I fully am convinced it will be backwards compatible. I see no reason for it not to be backwards compatible. To me, it would be like a good signal that they're headed for a rough new system if it's not backwards compatible.
Well,
Like
the last backwards compatible or the only backwards compatible I can think of is like the Wii U and the Wii, right? Wii U played Wii
well,
games.
we played GameCube games for the longest time.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's true. I don't think they've ever made backwards compatibility a selling point of anything because they
Portable
don't
more
like it, right?
it's more common in portable. Game Boy Color played Game Boy,
Right. Yeah.
DS played Game Boy Advance. Game Boy Advance played Game Boy and Game Boy Color. The DS played Game Boy Advance.
And
The
DS, yeah.
3DS played DS, like at least. So those were all things that still kind of worked.
Yeah, so there's like a real good chance that Switch 2 plays
Yeah,
Switch 1 games. Yeah.
I don't think they're abandoning that, but I say let's go back in time here. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. Because it's not just like okay, the year's dry. There's really I don't know if there's any more we can really say about that other than I guess we can always wait for June when they're going to have a presentation. We assume of some kind. They kind of have to because
There's no
they're
E3 to prepare
right. They're
for it?
still but
Yeah.
they can do a Nintendo Direct. I mean, the hell, man, they built this. They made this bed.
Yeah.
So you would assume by June there's going to be another big Nintendo Direct because clocks run out. Like there is no more first party games after Luigi's Mansion 2 HD
It's also
in
June
June.
is kind of the perfect time to announce something coming out in fall.
Right. Right. So there's nothing left to sell. Although it's still weird to me because again, I you go back and watch every February Direct and they have a big game coming out in the second half of the year every single time. Every single year there was always some big game except maybe 2020 which again was carried by Animal Crossing and Xenoblade Definitive at the
Well,
early first
yeah.
half. But there
Animal
was
Crossing is that's another Wii phenomena mixed with
yeah,
it's a very accessible game. It's cute, but it's also accessible.
yeah.
Um, it's peaceful. It's the least stressful game ever, even though you're taking on debt.
Yep.
Mm. I don't know what that says about society. But then also, like, the pandemic hit, and I don't know,
Right.
the Switch sorta did exactly what the Wii did in the same way, where it's just like it was the most accessible, console or gaming at the exact right moment, you
Yeah.
know? Um, so yeah, I'm wondering if that's like, okay, they're not gonna have a big game announcement for fall because they're gonna have a new.
Does the new system come out this year? Because the rumor is it's going to get pushed to early next year. And if it is being pushed to early next year,
That means they have nothing. Well, okay.
we got to have
One,
something.
what is the likelihood that they could get something out this year?
Not that unlikely. Because if you remember, Metroid Dread was announced in June and came out in October.
Okay. So if they kept the lid on something fairly big,
Yeah.
maybe yeah, maybe they could get it out. I mean, I doubt that they would be able to like bump up the production schedule of of a console or of hardware
Hmm. Yeah.
necessarily. But also like the Switch 2's got to have been in production for quite some time.
Yeah. At this point, there's no way it hasn't been
Yeah, and like the Switch 1 came out in March, didn't it? Like
March.
it released in a March.
Right.
So maybe they bump it up early to come out in the fall because they have nothing big for holiday
Right,
season.
because everyone's kind of speculating now that the reason it hasn't been announced or may not come out this year is because they want to avoid, a bum rush of scalpers and all the console shortages
And they
and all
don't want
that.
you to stop buying Switch this early into the year. And
Right, and like in Tiny Dick Jim Ryan, he said on his way out on his last day, we sold 160 PS2s. That's 5 million more than was we previously reported. So fuck you, Nintendo. Yeah. So he threw the gauntlet down at them right on his last day, saying, "You have 5 million more than you thought you had to catch up to beat me." Um, guys
oh,
are
sweet, sweet Jim Ryan.
oh, what a prick.
Left Sony better than he found it.
Statistically not true, but
I love that the Sony. I can't remember his name right now, but the CEO before Jim Ryan, the head of Sony Gaming before Jim Ryan or whatever, uh, flat out basically shit all over Jim Ryan's whole strategy. Like basically said what Phil Spencer was saying, and
yeah, you're right. Who was it? It wasn't Sean Layden, was it? It was, or was it?
I'm blanking on his name, but
Oh man, I know exactly what you're talking about. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah,
but I I don't know if Jim Ryan, like, you never really know how they're going to be remembered necessarily, but like, I sort of don't expect Jim Ryan is necessarily going to be remembered as like a great CEO for.
honestly, if anything, all he did was like pull, like drive the truck further up the cliff because the heavy push for tentpole because he's the tentpole guy.
Right.
He wanted to do away with anything that wasn't going to be tentpole, and he wanted to make
Right. He put them in the corner they're in today.
right, yeah,
Right. Which granted gave us a lot of games we really love, gave us a lot of things that are great, but also made it so that all those middle ground games are just never going to happen. You're only going to have tent poles, and you know, your first party Sony games. He's the guy that courted the whole movie game kind of
yeah.
thing. Which, granted, again, some of those movie games I do love. Uh, I'm not gonna say I'm not being hypocritical by
Yeah,
criticizing them,
but
but
it's always weird to like try to like I don't know push your whole fucking outfit in one direction.
well, I feel like I've been pretty clear that I think chasing tentpole only strategies is bad, no matter what media you're in. Even if in like TV, HBO is having a lot of problems because it chased purely tentpole Game of Thrones style content for a few years after Game of Thrones, and so now it's kind of meandering. Although I
Mhm.
guess technically they have Last of Us, and Last of Us is doing great. But that's another tent pole. We're going to spend $1 billion for 8 episodes.
Right, and it feels like they've,
You
like,
know,
put themselves into, like, this money pit where they have to keep doing Last of Us stuff because
or
it's
Game of Thrones stuff,
it's almost too expensive, and we can't let it go too long
right?
without being,
Yeah, they don't have. They've always done prestige TV, but they didn't necessarily do tentpole prestige like TV, that kind of thing.
right.
And same with Sony. Sony always did. Sony first party did lots of prestige. They just didn't. Not every single game they made was a $300 million behemoth.
Right. They used to have smaller indie projects for PS3
Right.
and even PS4 for a small time. They used to have like
Even their main studios used to have smaller games, right? I mean, I'm not saying that Jack and Daxter was a tiny game by any means, but it also wasn't necessarily the same type of behemoth that The Last of Us was.
well, certainly not for manpower or time or
Mm,
anything.
Yeah, it didn't cost nearly the same amount, and it also wasn't trying to like win artist award. Like I don't know how to describe what I'm um like Jack and Daxter was made to be a game, and Last of Us, which I like Last of Us, but it was made to be a statement.
Right.
If that makes it like uh, they made Jack and Daxter and hoped you really liked it. Not to say that it didn't have a story or a theme or any of
Yeah,
that
yeah,
stuff,
yeah, yeah.
but they made Last of Us and hoped you cried, or hope you, and that's not a bad thing, right? I'm not
Well, I think the only bad thing about it is because that's the only thing they want to do now, or that weird
right.
statement about art
They
where
put
they're just
themselves in
like,
a corner where it's
yeah,
like,
we grown up beyond that. I'm like, what the hell does that mean? What, you can't go back and forth? What?
well, look at God of War. Look at what God of War is versus what it used to be. And again, I really love God of War, but they want you to cry while you're killing the bad guys. They
Yeah,
want you to feel deeply, and
yeah,
and
yeah,
that's not a bad thing, but they have obviously changed goals, and they also have changed how much money they're willing to put into their tentpole games to try
yeah.
and like make all the money back. I mean, I think where it really comes down is like Spider-Man 2, did great, but also nobody really talks about it now.
Yeah,
It's
and
not
and
memorable.
that's a game that needed to sell like 6 to 7 million to break even or something.
Right. Holy shit. And it's no longer in the cultural conversation at all. I don't know if that matters because it did make its money back, but I don't think it made like did it make a massive profit too, or was it like,
Well, yeah, I mean, well, okay, so it made 10 million pretty quick, 10 million sales, and then kind of
and
plateaued
then
there.
petered off, right? Yeah, that was, yeah, which again, not bad. It's just, but it's
But it's
probably
a,
not
it's
like,
it's it's a dangerous precedent because it's like it's a unique case because again, like as we found out, like Marvel wants 40% of the cut of that game.
yeah, your margin is literally razor thin.
Yeah.
Like that's,
So now most of their other games probably don't need to sell 66 to 7 million to break even. You probably need to sell about 4 to 5 to break even, which that's
still a
not
lot.
great.
Yeah, it's still a lot.
Now, granted, you get a God of War and you'll get a Horizon, which will sell 10 million. And 10 million for those games is a lot more money in PlayStation's pocket than 10 million for Spider-Man.
Yeah, yeah, because
Spider-Man sells faster and generally better, but I mean Horizon 1 got to 10 million, and that's why I think you're seeing faster turnaround time for PC stuff too. Like
well,
Burning Shores came out and then like within a year they had a PC version of it.
e- uh, yeah, I would also argue that that goes back to what we've been saying for a while, where like the big three all know that consoles aren't growing anymore. They're not
Yeah.
dead. They're not going anywhere, but they aren't growing anymore. And so they are all of the big 3 especially are looking outside of console exclusivity for profit. whatever merchandising that is. There was a big article too recently that just talked about how like even Nintendo they're just doing it in the theme park realm. I don't know if I agree necessarily.
Okay, well, this is Sirkin Toto writing it. So
Yeah, I'm not saying that
that man has takes. I
yeah, but for once he's in line with my take that I've
I
been
get
saying
what
for
he
fucking
the thing is I get what he's saying. It's just he always finds a weird way to word stuff where it's like Nintendo knows that it is, it's plateaued. I'm like, well, Nintendo never sold any more than they ever with the Switch than they ever had. This is the most successful system they have
right.
ever had. And it's still going. So like Nintendo's not like, man, like, we've plateaued. Like we peaked. We can't, we will never be as successful as we once were. No, they're as successful as they've ever been, and they're selling theme park tickets and movie tickets.
Yeah, and
It's
also of the big three, Nintendo is the one to least likely care about not growing if the money's staying the same.
right. Yeah, and as well, like they probably spend the least. Like they probably have the smallest budgets for their first party stuff.
And the smallest marketing budgets.
Probably smallest marketing
They
budgets too.
they don't market anywhere near what they're like Sony and Microsoft carpet bomb, and like Nintendo does not carpet bomb.
No.
Nintendo does a direct and releases the trailer on YouTube, and like you might see some ads, but
Yeah, you'll see they make like a couple commercials like 3 times a year. They'll have like a montage commercial that they'll just sort of like spit out
right.
somewhere. And
Um, yeah, no, I'm definitely not trying to argue that I'm correct because this guy wrote an article. I'm just saying it is now it's pervading everyone's thoughts. Like
Mhm.
this thing that we've been saying, I think for years now, we've been saying this, but definitely for the last several months, we've been talking about how like exclusivity isn't the future. Like
No,
things like Game Pass are the future, and right now it's a great deal.
for
Later on,
now.
it'll be dystopian, but it will be, and we know it. But something that regain my train of thought here for a second, something that I do think that points to with like Nintendo having a dry, starting, 2024. And again, it's not even that dry. Like eh, they they aren't doing the tent poles. Sony is the tent pole company. Microsoft, for the last couple of years, hasn't really been doing much of either. So Nintendo having like a big fall announcement in June, and it's like, here's our new console, and we're starting fresh next year.
I mean,
I could see it
it's hard for me to imagine if they announce the console
that it comes
in
out in July.
June and then it comes out. Well, if they announce it in June and then it doesn't come out until March, right?
Right.
I just don't. To me, that seems hard for me to. Here's where I'm actually having the hardest time figuring out what Nintendo plans is going to be, because if they announce it in June, it comes out in March or February or March or whatever, right?
Right.
Well, you just killed your holiday season.
Right.
No one has any reason to buy your Switch this holiday season
That's why
whatsoever.
it's got to come out holiday season, right?
Well, here's the thing. If they say, "Oh, they announced the new system in October or November," you killed your holiday season right before it starts. So what do you do? Do you announce you have a new system in January that's coming out in a month or two? Do they pull an Apple? Like,
I kind of think they did. No, I no, they announce in June and it's coming out in. I bet they would rather kill their summer because the summer's slower anyway,
mhm. Yeah,
right? Isn't
but
summer the slowest of the year? Right, yeah.
absolutely.
So it's like they'll kill their summer on the current Switch in order to have a bigger holiday.
I don't know. Like, there's going to be consumer backlash if they say they waited till January to talk about their next system. Like, and here's the strangest scenario, right? They will officially announce we have a new system coming. We will reveal details at a later date.
Hmm.
So they will officially say there will be a tweet. We do have a new system coming. We didn't lie to any of y'all. but they'll just put out a single, sentence or like a couple sentence tweet, no images, no nothing. We will have a new hardware system. We have a new hardware system coming. We will announce new details at a later date. That's the tweet. They put that out in October. That when so they don't say the name, they don't say the release date, they don't say they don't say when. It's an announcement of an announcement, but they don't even say when they're going to say new stuff's coming at a later date nebulously. Then in January, press starts getting invited to some big brouhaha somewhere, right? And
Yeah.
they officially reveal the name, the price, the release date, the launch lineup. And I think that's like the most, unfortunately to me, that this is the most Nintendo move they're going to do, because they basically will be extremely sneaky about the fact that they said this and try to sell as many Switches as they can this holiday. And people will be like, "What the fuck are you announcing a new system in January? I just bought my kids a Switch a month ago. What the hell?"
Yeah.
And they'll be like, "Well, we as we have said, we were forthcoming that we had a new system coming. We tweeted about this in October. Blah blah blah." They did it. They'll do it super under the radar. It's basically just like, I'm gonna cover my ass in the most like nebulous and non-exciting way possible, and hope you ignore it, forget about it, whatever. And then when it comes time for me to actually talk about the damn thing after the holidays, then I'll talk to you about
that everyone has their own weird brand of shady. You ever notice that? Like the
it.
way
Yeah.
Sony shady is different than the way Xbox is shady is different than the way Nintendo is shady. And this is a pretty Nintendo thing to do. I wonder.
So that's how I think this is going to play out. But I do think in June they're going to announce a bunch of stuff, and I think part of that is like Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD
Mm,
getting Switch versions. I think there'll be more GameCube and Wii games that get some sort of remaster that just sort of get nebulously dumped. There'll be something on the level of Princess Peach Showtime that is new, but obviously not tentpole. And they're just sort of going to like pad out the rest of the Switch's life in 2024 with these sort of token rainy day games. Like,
they're the bottom of the barrel ideas, not necessarily bad ideas, just ideas that kept getting
they're
pushed
not.
back. And
They're just ideas that like, okay, well, when we have a hole in our release schedule. And the thing is, their hole in the release schedule has gone from like maybe like this to like, oh, now this is
a
no longer a
year, yeah.
leak. It's no longer a leak. It's now a hole in the roof kind of thing.
So, kind of a segue from that into a little bit of speculation because there, I'm trying to think like end year of each of their last generations. There's been some pretty good games that come out in that year.
Well, let's look back in time, right? I wanted to,
Yeah.
because I have the list here. I have it right here. These are their final years of their systems. Okay.
Yeah. Let's talk about that.
Now here's 2016 is the last year that the Wii U is on the market.
Okay.
The system died miserably, right? So March 2017 is when the Switch came out. So 2016, roughly the last year of the system's life, right? So for Wii U, you have Mario and Sonic at the Rio 2016 Olympic Games on 3DS and Wii U.
It was a hit. It was a big hit.
Uh, uh, Mini Mario and Friends Amiibo Challenge on the eShop.
International favorite.
Their big fall title was Paper Mario Color Splash, which they didn't even bother to market because the system was beyond cooked by October 2016. This came out, was it October or November? Thanks for the ad. It came out October 20. Yeah, the system was beyond cooked by then. So that was their big holiday title, was Paper Mario Color Splash.
Wow.
Pokken Tournament came out early in the year for the Wii U. Star Fox Zero and Star Fox Guard, in the bundle pack. But yeah, Star Fox Zero and Twilight Princess HD. And technically Tokyo Mirage Sessions came out on the Wii U like early that year. So that, like, if we want to talk about after June, it was strictly Paper Mario Color Splash. Because Star Fox Zero, I believe, was April, April 22nd,
Wow.
2016, and they pretty much didn't, to my knowledge, I don't think they released really anything until Color Splash. Because yeah, Twilight Princess came out the month before. Um, Pokken, I'm trying to think what Pokken came out. Um, hmm,
I mean,
July.
Pokken was
Pokken
popular for a little bit.
Pokken came out in July of 2015. Though again, technically
July
that's
of
that's that's
2015.
that's kind of a weird gray area because again, it's like it's a Pokemon and Nintendo or art that's kind of first party. It's kind of not first party. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just gonna call it first party though, because
Yeah, but Tokyo Mirage Sessions came out in June, and then it was pretty much they just kind of let the system die, wither on the vine and die. Like there was like Pokken. The second half of 2016 was Pokken and Paper Mario Color Splash, and they didn't get, like I remember being at that Comic Con for Nintendo. And the thing they announced was the NES Mini. That was their big holiday thing. Was the NES Mini because the
right.
Wii U was just
Yes. Yeah,
was
yeah,
just
yeah.
dead beyond belief. It was just dead. Like they knew it. They knew it.
Right. We had a whole episode about how that's a funny holiday rush thing to have.
Yeah. So jumping ahead, let's look at the
9
last.
years ago.
Now let's look at the last year of the Nintendo Wii. Okay. So Skyward Sword is their big holiday title in 2011, right? November 2011.
Right.
And then 1 year later, the Wii U would come out. So after Skyward Sword, the last year of the Wii, Kirby's Dream Collection, which was a bunch of Game Boy, NES, SNES games, Mario Party 9, the most hated Mario Party.
Which means it must be the best because
Oh no,
you
no, no! It is actually trash. So one where
measure it by how angry it makes you.
it doesn't make anyone angry because you're all in a car. You all move at
Oh,
the same time. There's no like no, not 9 is
it's just bad.
absolutely the
All right.
garbo. Mario Party 9, Kirby's Dream Collection, which almost doesn't count. It's just a bunch of old Kirby games. New Play Control Pikmin 2. So Pikmin 2 from the GameCube with Wii controls. Uh, Poke Park 2 Wonders Beyond for the Wii. Rhythm Heaven Fever. And that's it. And technically, in April, Xenoblade 1 came out for the American launch of the Wii in 2012, early 2012. But your 2012 for the Wii, the last year of the Wii itself, was
It's pretty rough.
Rhythm Heaven Fever, something called Poke Park 2 Wonders Beyond. Um, whatever that was. I don't even think Pokemon fans remember this game.
I really thought there was like usually one good game in the last year of each system. And now I'm sort of feeling like there's not really a lot of hope for this year for Nintendo.
Right. So yeah, Mario Party 9, which again nobody liked whatsoever. So yeah, the Wii's last year was a desert. It was yes, Rhythm Heaven Fever is actually a great game. I'm sure it is, but like it's Rhythm Heaven Fever, right? Like
Right.
it's
It's not necessarily going
the
to be the
most
most
the most
impactful.
hated Mario Party game in history, and Rhythm Heaven Fever was pretty much the entirety of the Nintendo Wii's life in the last year before the Wii U came out that fall. And
Okay.
let's get more dire.
No,
Let's
let's
go
do it. Yeah, dude. GameCube.
GameCube. In the last year of the GameCube, there was Twilight Princess.
Wait, wait. That's right.
That's it. And
That's
that
great.
came out 2 weeks after the Wii version and only in North America.
That's upsetting. that is that is upsetting, but also that's a good last game for a console.
Oh, I spoke too soon. Chibi Robo.
I-
That came out in like February, I want to say.
That is an American classic.
So the last year for first party for the GameCube was Chibi Robo at the start, Twilight Princess after the Wii release.
Okay, so I'm not going to say that that's no, you know what? No, I'm giving it to it. Okay, GameCube had a great final year game. At least one killed it. GameCube went out strong.
But again, it came out after the Wii version. And
I
only
don't
in North America. You had to order it from Nintendo's website if you lived in Europe or Japan.
look. I don't. I realize that I'm quibbling in order to give it a victory, but I don't care. I'm doing it. I'm giving. I'm giving GameCube a victory because I loved the GameCube.
I mean, I bought the GameCube version. Don't get me wrong. Bought it day one,
Hell
but
yeah!
but I still have it. But yeah, like being real with you, the GameCube had a horrendous last year. You had 12 months of literally Chibi Robo. That was basically it.
God, can you imagine if there's somebody that just like really loved that? It's
There
like
are,
that's
yeah. I mean, like Team
like
Ninja's former head Itagaki loved Chibi Robo, but
you know what I think? I feel like I was actually told that recently. I just
well,
got the craziest wave of deja vu.
yeah, Itagaki for some reason is one of his
Oh
favorite games.
no, I was talking about yesterday how Itagaki, like Ninja Gaiden, wouldn't necessarily exist if Xbox had never existed. Like not in the
Yeah.
way because he made it to be more violent to fit into the audience of Xbox. Like it
Mhm.
was his violent entry
Yeah,
as
yeah,
it.
yeah.
So Xbox doesn't happen. Ninja Gaiden might not have happened. It definitely wouldn't have happened the way it happened, but it might not have
Mhm.
happened at all. Isn't that a crazy thought? We didn't even talk about
Yeah,
doing that.
we may not have gotten Ninja Gaiden's revival, although it's gone again. So I guess
Well, you know,
it's
but
in a weird spot.
just
I think
waiting for a new
I think
revival.
because Itagaki only made 2 games, then he was out by the time the 3rd one came out, and everyone hated the 3rd, so it was kind of like
Yeah, that's fair.
it's almost like it didn't mean I guess it didn't mean much in the end. But yeah, even but here's the thing, Andrew. 2005 wasn't exactly kind to the GameCube either.
No, it wasn't.
You had Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, the bongo platformer game.
Yes,
You had Fire Emblem Path of Radiance if you were lucky enough to find one of the 100 copies that existed in retail,
I was not.
and Super Mario Strikers. That's it. They released 3 games.
Oddly enough, I have good memories playing Super Mario Strikers.
Oh, it's a beloved game, but I'm like
Actually, playing with
3,
you and Rodney.
3. They had 3 games come out in 2005 and 2 come out in 2006 for a home console.
That's upsetting.
Those were dark days for Nintendo.
That was, yeah.
But let's keep it going. Let's get about that. Let's
In
2000
64.
2001. Technically, you have Conker's Bad Fur Day, but very few copies of that were actually made.
Yes, and I got one of them.
Dr. Mario 64, I guess.
All right,
Mario Party 3.
right on. That was the
Pa-
cowboy one, right?
No, that's
What?
the one after the cowboy one.
Cowboy one was 2? What
Yeah.
was the theme of the 3rd one? I guess it was 2 that I played the shit out of.
Woody Woods.
I think I guess it must have been 2 that I played the shit out of.
You probably did. Paper Mario, the original Paper Mario came out in February of 2001. And I remember how they intentionally delayed it from 2000 to 2001 in North America because they're like, we have nothing. We literally have nothing on the N64 to pad it out to the GameCube.
This
So
is the only place that loves the N64.
you are
So
noted. Have you noticed there's a lot of Paper Marios in the last year of a system's life? Um, but yeah, and then
conspiracy.
Pokemon Stadium 2.
All
And
right, yeah,
that was March, by the way. So March was
yeah. Wow.
Pokemon Stadium 2. February was I'm sorry, Paper Mario. And then Conquer was April technically, but like no, sorry, it was March. Conquer was March as well. So from April onwards, 2001 for console gaming was pretty much dead on the N64.
You really
Mario
don't realize like how spoiled we've been for the last 7 years. Like
No, no, for sure.
2017 was
For sure.
insane.
Yes, for sure.
18 was insane. 19 was pretty good. Like, we haven't really had a bad year for gaming
Yeah.
in some time. Sorry, side just a weird sidetrack.
Well, the thing was with the N64, again, like May was the last release from Nintendo on the system. Like Dr. Mario in April, and then Mario Party 3 in May, and that was it. There was
But
no more.
they really do go dry right into their next
Right.
console, like,
Now the thing is that the Game Boy Advance came out in June, and the Game Boy Advance floated them until the GameCube
right.
came out. So, but just to sort of give everyone sort of like just to sort of summarize here, Nintendo pretty much went dry from after May to the end to till the GameCube came out, and it kind of repeated itself again. With wow, the GameCube was like really barren. Until the Wii came out, really really barren, and then the Wii U was pretty barren too. Somehow less barren than the Wii. So
I feel like it'd be more noticeable now to me because I have my own money. Like, when you're a kid, you're not getting I didn't get games, like, all the time. Like,
right.
I maybe got a game a quarter type deal, or there'd be, like, one sick ass time a year, probably Christmas or birthday or
Hmm.
some of that, where you'd get a couple of games. So maybe I just didn't notice this at the
Yeah.
time. I don't know. Like, what was SNES's final year like?
Donkey Kong Country 3, Kirby Superstar, Super Mario RPG leading up into it. And then before that, you had Earthbound, Donkey Kong Country 2, Yoshi's Island, and Kirby's Avalanche in 95.
Hmm.
So, I mean, the thing is like it's only 3 games in 96. Granted, they released a lot less games a year somehow. Weirdly, they released a lot less games when it was a lot easier to make games back then. But I mean, Donkey Kong Country 3, Kirby Superstar, and Mario RPG are like all-time
Yeah.
classics. Like things people still talk about to this day. And
So
then
part of me wonders if do you think that that's because they released so few games that they're all-time classics, or they really were that friggin' good?
Mario RPG really was that freaking good, and Superstar is that freaking. Donkey Kong Country 3 is good. Like it has some defenders who think it's the best of the trilogy. I don't, but it's still very good.
Hmm.
It's like the Jack 3 of Donkey Kong Country.
Okay.
But it's
Okay.
it's it's still good. And the crazy thing is that Nintendo actually supported the NES all the way until 1994, 3 years after the Super NES had been out.
Yeah, but it's probably why, like, I think we talked about this once before where I had said, like, in my brain they were concurrent systems, and we got as kids we got like we had the NES, we didn't get a SNES, we got a Genesis,
Mm.
and then we got an N64 like later on.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, we skipped over the SNES. One, we played it at a friend's house all the time, but like, that must be why I remember it. Like, we went from NES directly to N64 in a lot of ways
Yeah, and
because
again, it
they
was
ran same time forever.
yeah, they had like small releases, but like you're talking like Star Tropics 2 and Kirby's Adventure, which is a huge NES game, and Wario's Woods was the last. It was a puzzle game, but whatever. It was still like Nintendo was still releasing product in 94 on the Nintendo Entertainment System.
Yeah.
So yeah, like just sort of like just like this history lesson is like Nintendo's very dry. Like they basically, they run out of lube and they just basically say fuck it on the last year. Going in dry.
They, j- they still pump out a few things.
So in a sense though, Andrew, you make a good point though, where it's like we've already had more games in this quote unquote dry year. They've already put out and committed to putting out more games than they have on any other last year of their system, because we have had one, two, three, four, five, six. We have 6 games for the first 6 months of 2024. Granted, 2 of them are in May, but it's like there's pretty much a game a month from Nintendo for the first 6 months. And then we assume they're going to talk about something for the next 6 months. But even if it was just those 6, even if they didn't release a Switch game after Luigi's Mansion 2, that's still more games in the last year for a home console. And yeah, I consider Switch a home console. I know some people like to get real hung up about, well, it's a hybrid. And that's technically it's a portable.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. Um,
Even being a potato, it still costs a lot more to make a Switch game than it does a Game Boy Advance game. Come on now.
you know what it is? I think that the reason they're putting out this many games in the last year when they like to just sort of like um probably because the Switch has been so successful that they still view like we can still make a good profit
Yeah, so like
on these smaller games.
even a drip feed
Right.
of remasters and remakes is still better than just sort of like letting it languish in the desert.
Yeah, those games are still very much worth the budget.
Yeah, and they can't be. I don't know. Like Mario versus Donkey Kong, like it's the remake of the Game Boy Advance. That was a full remake, made with polygons and shit now. But I'm sure it cost way more than say the Game Boy Advance original cost to make. But it probably cost way less than almost
Oh
any
my
other,
god, yeah.
way less than any other first party game coming out this year.
It sort of makes you wonder though, like, does Nintendo do this intentionally? Or is it just like a quirk of their culture, like their corporate culture? I mean, where it's just like they push it, period. And so they always peter out in the last year.
It's
Or
kind of annoying. Here's the thing: if
it feels planned.
I feel if Nintendo wanted to just say, like, you know what, fine, we're not going to have a big last year. There's no Swan Song coming. Like, oops, sorry guys, like the Swan Song's already happened. What would be, what would actually help them more than anything would just be to drop the price. Just put a price cut on it. Start making like some bundles, and then just hey, yeah, the system's in its twilight years. We're gonna be honest. We'll have a trickle of new releases. Here's $100 off it now. For anyone who, because at this point you're not selling new. The thing is, I don't know. You're not selling new Switches, or you're not selling Switches to Switchless owners any longer. You're selling Switches as a second or third per household.
Right.
At this point, like no household, there's I don't know if there's nothing left. Even if they had a Swan Song, right? I don't know that there's anything left Nintendo could do as like a system seller. There's no system seller left that's going to convince you to buy a Switch if you don't have one already.
I
There's,
guess I
I think
sort
that's
of
the real, and I think that's the real question. If you don't have a Switch right now, never had a, better question is, did you ever have a Switch? And if you never did, what's a system seller on the Switch now? At this point in time, what could possibly be a system seller for this system?
yeah, a part of me is like a good bundle would do it probably, but then I don't know. It, I guess you sort of imagine that they have a plan for the generation, right? They go like, "Oh, this generation's going to last this many years." But also, Nintendo doesn't seem like they have that plan. Like it just
Yeah,
like
and
they sort of go until sales start to drop, and they're all like, "Okay, I guess we're going on to the next one."
yeah, like again, the whole they love to run out the clock. Where the thing is like the Wii U only lasted 4 years, and really not
Right.
even not even four. Like again, that last year on the Wii U was a was pretty much they knew by May the system was over and done with. So that's why
Damn.
they had nothing come out on the Wii U in the second half of 2016. And even when they did, like Paper Mario, they just didn't even advertise. Like nobody's buying it, we know it. So it was just kind of like left, left to right. So they went to those Switch very quickly.
Right.
They didn't wait around. Like again, it was 4 years. Boom, new system. Switch is on its seventh year, possibly going till eight. It will be eight by the time they refresh the system. That's double the length. There's no way they could sit there, look at the failure of the Wii U, and go, "Well, our next system will last twice as long."
Yeah. Uh, it it just makes me like other companies. It used to be. It seemed like they planned for like a 5 year
Yeah,
generation.
5-year was kind of the standard until the PS3 360 era.
Yeah, and then 360 went for, dude, I mean, like damn near a
Way,
decade.
way too long. Yeah, almost, but yeah.
Yeah. So I wonder if like is this indicative of the industry as a whole, or it would be sort of interesting to do what we just did for Nintendo to look at other consoles
Mm,
and look at that. I mean, obviously not in the same episode, but maybe as like a side quest content, uh, like just running down final years would be kind of interesting because I wonder if there's a philosophy difference.
mm.
You know, I
Yeah, yeah.
we often talk about Nintendo, like just as my final thought of Nintendo going in dry. Like, does Nintendo go in dry in its final year because it's a philosophy of how they view it? Is it part of that same idea of like blue ocean strategy where like they just do things different? Or is it just like all of them are doing it? It's just Nintendo is slower about it or more
Mhm.
drastic about it.
And you have to wonder if it's just because, like, well, all their like top tier talent has to be working on launch stuff, stuff for the new
Right.
system.
Yeah.
They can't. You really can't be afforded having a really big, impactful. Like you can't have a 2023 as your. I mean, it would have been phenomenal if 2023 was the last year of the Switch, and then or even early this year was the new system. Would they have anything ready to go for it? It'd be great if they did, but maybe they don't. But yeah, you can't have that last year of your system being dedicated to big high quality products when the system's dead, it's on its way out. You're not going to sell a major release, is not going to move units anymore. You can't like
Yeah. No,
the
that makes
needle
sense.
the needle will be pushed just a tiny bit, right? Like if say like you had a big Zelda or a big Mario at the ass end of a game's life, a game system's life. So they must know it's such a diminished return. And I think that's really just the end all be all of it. Is that how do we know that Nintendo's actually making a new system? Because of how dry this year looks. And there can be no greater diminished return than putting all your effort into a massive brand new Mario game as like the swan song for the Switch and just the Switch when you have 140 million people who own it. You're not going to move any more new ones, and then you have to launch a new system right after that with what?
Which yeah, you're probably going to then turn around and put that new Mario game on that new system too, and then you're basically strangling one or the other.
Which is kind of
Yeah,
what Wii U did. Because remember, Breath of the Wild came out on Wii U
right.
the
Yeah,
same
yeah.
day as the Switch version. Which, in a sense, what a swan song for the Wii U. And it's almost funny because I didn't buy a Switch for the first few months because I had the Wii U, and I'm like, well, I don't need a Switch. Like, I have Breath of the Wild on my Wii U. Like,
Right.
it's the same game.
And didn't
So
it didn't it run pretty good? It ran pretty good on the Wii U.
it did actually run really good. It was really funny because people
You could
don't know
tell it was
this.
built on the Wii U.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, the funny thing was is that pre day one patch, like launch day, if you were able to play the system like early or got an early copy or whatever, I saw it from, you know, let's just say whatever. I saw the original pre day one patch Switch version of Breath of the Wild. It actually ran worse on the Switch than it did on the Wii U.
That doesn't
So
surprise me.
they actually were patching it very quickly to make the
Yeah.
Switch version better than the Wii, and it eventually became and ran better than the Wii U version. But I don't know if people remember this, but like day one, the Wii U version actually ran a little better than the Switch. I saw Switch straight up would freeze. Like if you killed like a frozen chew or something, or caused like a really big
Yeah.
explosion, the thing would actually hard freeze for like 10 seconds before it would like figure out what it was supposed to be doing.
I got lucky because I never had that happen, but we definitely talked about that in the episode about Breath of the Wild. Um way
Yeah.
back. Um but yeah, any final thought on Nintendo going in dry? Or I read out the patrons, the
I
producers?
guess if anything, okay, what I guess for you and for me then, what is a smaller, doesn't have to be tiny, but just somewhat smaller scale game for the Switch that would excite you for this year? What's something, it could be brand new, it could be a remake, remaster, but just like what's kind of something that would like I would really like to see this on and during the sunset.
I don't know if a sunset is a magical time where smaller, idea like F Zero's never been a small thing, but I feel like an F Zero remaster of an old F Zero game would be kind of a cool,
Yeah, GX.
yeah, just like a little. That'd be cool. That'd be a cool, remaster that would get me to buy something in the final year. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah, that'd be
F-Zero.
sick.
I would really like to see the last story get a full like remaster on the
Really
Switch. Sakaguchi's last console game.
sweet,
Um,
sweet Sakagooch.
um, it's actually a really cool game, but like the Wii could not run it. It was choking the life out of the Wii. So putting it on the Switch with like up-res textures and actually able to run its own battle system, it's a really cool game that really got forgotten by time because it came out so late on the system. Nintendo didn't even want to publish it. Xseed published it in North America because Nintendo didn't care.
Wow.
Um, so
And then Sakaguchi retired shortly thereafter too.
more or less came out and made a game for Apple Arcade, but uh,
Right. Yeah, that's right. That's right. I don't even remember the name of that game, but
Fantasian, and he had a mobile game, Terra Battle, that he was in a short-lived Terra Battle too, that he made just a ton of money on, and went
wow.
surfing in Hawaii.
Hell yeah. He did it right though. And every time you hear a story about him, you're kind of like, he just does it right.
Well, I think he realized I think he my dog sneezing.
I thought you sneezed. I was like, did I just
No, you know, give me. Like, what? Nope, nope, not embarrassed.
we're sick and the dog's sneezing. Gave your dog a cold.
I hope not.
Stop kissing your dog.
No, but yeah. Anyways, yeah. To me, I'm like, okay, what would be exciting for me? I'm seeing something like Last Story kind of get another
Yeah, that would be
shot at
cool.
sales, just because, like, yeah, it's Uematsu who's retired from full soundtracks now, and Sakaguchi who's basically retired from games, and these are like the old guard, the original Final Fantasy 1 people,
Yeah.
like their last console game. It'd be nice if that just kind of got a sort of, swan song, you know, uh, remaster on the Switch this year. That would make me pretty. I don't think again it wouldn't sell any systems, but Endless Ocean and Another Code aren't either.
Says the guy who's gonna buy Endless Ocean.
Hell yeah, I'm gonna buy Endless Ocean, but I come on, I know it's funny because like it supports up to 30 players online. I'm like, wow, the entire worldwide sales for that game is actually gonna be able to play together online.
Wow. Well, we're possibly gonna name a dozen people here that will also be a part of those 30 people.
I'll see you in the
there's,
ocean.
there's a decent chance. Of course, I'm talking about our producers. If you're interested in becoming a patron at any level, please check out patreon.com/YoVideogames podcast. The dude of the week was Omar C. Thank you, Omar. And our producers for this episode are Os Knight, Zyber Knight, Mutton Chops Johnson, Screwdomy, Karoy 35, Hyper Viper 89, Hockey Kong 64, LCL Mayhem, and Ziggy Z. Thank you, dudes. We'll catch you next time.
Later, dudes.